Battlefield and esports in the same sentence doesn't really make sense for a lot of people, and when you talk Battlefield 1 and esports, that makes even less sense. I'd have to agree with the second one. BF1 right now is certainly nothing like what a competitive esports game should be, and that's fine because it was never designed with that in mind. Having said that, neither was BF4, but that had a pretty successful scene with multiple ESL 1 LAN tournaments and over 100,000 in prize money handed out. Even the local areas in the UK had their own regional tournaments with their own prize money. Sure, it wasn't a lot, but it was a great start towards modern Battlefield games being a recognised esports game. Unfortunately, with BF1, that hasn't progressed. In fact, it's gone backwards so far. No tournaments, no competitions, well, not even passworded servers just yet. It just isn't possible. That being said though, there has been some cause for excitement recently if you're a competitive player, because many signs have pointed towards DICE putting Battlefield back on the esports map in one form or another. A chap called Peter Moore, who used to work for EA, did multiple interviews where he talked about competitive gaming within EA. He himself was running the competitive gaming division within EA. He mentioned Battlefield numerous times, comparing it to the competitions that they'd already run in games like FIFA and Madden, which have pretty big esports scenes, especially FIFA. The problem is that he's now left EA to take up a dream position at his beloved Liverpool Football Club as CEO. That does worry me a little bit though. Who will take up his mantle pushing esports forward? He was doing a good job with his plan to push it with EA in the right direction, and there's a small worry that it's going to stall now after his departure. As well as Peter Moore though, DICE have recently listed specific esports job postings. In January, former Fnatic BF4 player called Drunks, one of the best competitive infantry players from BF4, took up an esports position at DICE. DICE were hiring a competitive gaming commissioner, and while I don't know exactly what his role will be, and he hasn't really come out and said it, you don't go around hiring a competitive player unless you want to properly use his knowledge and skill for something very specific. In fact, I'm very happy that he's working there now because he can apply some real competitive experience and knowledge to the dev team. Combine that with the fact that the DICE QA manager tweeted out less than a week ago asking for any esports or ex-esports players that wanted to get into QA testing at DICE. Now, it doesn't take Benedict Scrumble-Scratch or Sherlock Holmes to put two and two together. You hire a former esports winner to work at DICE, and then you want esports players to come in and test something. Well, clearly you've got something up your sleeves. The question now is what, and when are we going to see it? Well, I think the when is kind of obvious and probably something at EA Play. But what exactly is this? Well, I'm going to throw out some assumptions and massive speculation here because it's always fun, and I think there are numerous options. This could just be a new game mode for Battlefield 1 aimed at esports and competitive play. Although that one is probably the least likely scenario, just because the core gameplay of Battlefield 1 just doesn't lend itself very well to competitive play. It needs way more to it than just a simple game mode, and with that in mind I would have to think that whatever this thing is, it's something separate. So could it be a modified version of the core Battlefield 1 game perhaps? Say you load up BF1 and in the menu you can click on, say, the competitive mode or esports mode or something along those lines, and it loads up a different client, a tweaked version of BF1 with slightly different gun balance and some other esports specific features and maps and game modes. That could be really cool, and it ensures that you'll keep it all under the BF1 brand. But then you've got the problem of continuity. Some people playing a different version of the game, that isn't really that good. If you're promoting competitive play and tournaments, and people at home are watching Battlefield 1, you want them to see the same game that they play themselves. It's why CSGO works so well, because the tournaments that you see happening, well, that's exactly the same game that you can just hop on and play yourself. The third option is, of course, a standalone game. It could be Battlefield 1 related, or it could just be a modern shooter based off, say, the core mechanics of Battlefield 4, and it's made specifically for competitive play in mind. Small maps, specific gunplay and features, and entirely separate from BF1 and the other Battlefield games. This in itself, in my opinion, is probably one of the better options. You can change whatever you want for esports without affecting the gameplay of the casual players in the main game, and it ensures that people are fully aware when watching that this is a separate game entirely. Regardless of what happens with esports, it poses some interesting questions that hopefully we'll get some answers for soon. But one thing that we know for sure though, today we got to take a quick look at the surprises for Battlefest. I think that's what they were referring to, and it's for the next DLC for Battlefield 1 and a few other updates, and it's looking pretty good. So what did we get then? Well, there are some new concept images for the next DLC called In the Name of the Tsar. It's got just about everything that you could want to get excited. Soldiers riding horses with lances, huge cannons, snow maps, hello, that's going to look amazing, a snow train with a huge plough at the front, boats, and even what looks like a small destroyer in the background of one picture. Maybe that can be controlled like a smaller version of the Dreadnought. Honestly, visually, this looks like it could be the most striking piece of content so far for Battlefield 1. Vastly different from maps that we've already seen with a snowy theme and a much more different landscape. Russian soldiers with new vehicles, including what looks like a new soldier transport vehicle too. I love the contrast there between the fire and the ice. Maybe DICE really enjoy Game of Thrones. As well as that, the next big Battlefield update, the spring update, will bring with it the very anticipated platoon system that's recently gone into testing on the CTE. We were used to having platoons with the old battle log system, communities representing each other in game with their tags and such, and it's now being added back into BF1. And we also got some really cool news regarding game updates. Usually we get seasonal updates to the game every 2 to 3 months, but now DICE are going to move to a monthly update system, and this means that going forward we're going to get much more frequent updates when things need changing, and they're going to get fixed much sooner. Stuff like bugs, imbalances, weapon tweaks, helped of course by the CTE, which will be more important than ever now to properly test things before the monthly update. And finally, you can expect to see some tweaks and improvements to operations as we go forward to streamline the flow into a game, as well as some updates to the Rent a Server program. Passworded servers soon please, that would be absolutely fantastic. And that's all for today's video, guys. Let me know what you think this competitive thing is that DICE are working on for the Battlefield franchise. Could be a completely separate franchise, just throwing it out there, who knows. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.